Welcome to Counsel and Community.
Welcome to Counsel and Community, where legal insight meets real-life impact. Sophia Morales here, back with the Nelson Law Group team to share practical advice on navigating legal challenges while offering tips for personal growth and financial well-being. We are so excited to have you here with us today, and we're going to discuss getting lost in the kids, priorities in marriage. So welcome back, Brett and Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having us again.
Indeed. So let's start with you, Brett. In what ways do you notice people getting lost in their marriage, losing their way, and how do they end up there?
Well, I think the primary reason people get lost in their marriage is that they forget that they only have children because of their relationship. And somehow the children get notched up above the other spouse. And the priority becomes the children and what they're doing, not necessarily the kids' happiness, but what the kids are doing, as opposed to the intent being intentional about maintaining a healthy relationship with your spouse, which is far more important than anything anyone else is doing.
Yeah, I hear you talking about doingness compared to beingness in some ways.
The key to a successful relationship is being intentional about that relationship. You have to spend the time and be intentional with the spouse. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost any money. You just need to carve time out of the day, and even if it's just holding hands while you're watching TV, you see your wife doing the dishes, help her.
Yeah, pick up the towel and dry or whatever.
And just, a comment, how was your day? What did you do today? And, especially if you're a single earner household where one party is gone all day working and the other's in the house, make sure when you get home that you don't kick up your feet, but you look around and see if something needs to be done and give your spouse who is at home a break. They're the ones that need the rest, because they had no rest all day. And if you realize that, you're going to be miles ahead of those who don't.
Yeah, that's true. As a mother, you don't really get coffee breaks and lunch breaks.
You need to acknowledge that if in a traditional household, I'm not trying to say that the roles aren't reversed, but if to the extent that they are or not, the person who's staying home with the kids needs to be valued for that. And I believe that when you come home, you need to honor them by allowing them to take some time off. You need to honor them by making sure that they're taking care of themselves. If it's your wife, make sure she's getting her nails done, her hair done, get a massage. Make sure that she takes time out of the day to take care of herself, because typically the last person getting taken care of is the spouse who's at home taking care of the kids. And if you don't do that, you will get lost in your marriage, and you will ultimately end up in my office having a consultation, and I will most certainly bring to light the errors of your ways.
Absolutely. Well, and I think people lose track of the fact that self-care doesn't have to be expensive. As much as we like the massage and the nails, don't get me wrong, I love all that. Sometimes it's just about being able to spend 30 minutes in the bathroom undisturbed. Just let me go in and soak. Yep. And nobody knocking on the door going, mommy, I need, right?
100%. A bag of Epsom salt's like $6. So that's about 30 baths. So, it for sure. Light a candle, and 100% agree with that.
Absolutely.
When my kids were small, my kid's dad, we're great co-parents. We were great at being parents, and one of the things that we had was we had this rule that if there was work to be done, we would both do it, because I was working at home with the children all day. He was working in the office. So when he came home, he worked alongside me. And it was like, if both of us couldn't sit, no one was sitting. It was
yes.
so great. And it meant that he also had a lot more involved time with the children, because he was doing bath time and some, other things that I think traditionally, if he was out in the garage or whatever, he would have missed out on.
And to pick up on what Sarah just said, the opportunity, if you get divorced, the opportunity to do what Sarah just described goes away.
Yeah.
So you should look at it as an opportunity and a privilege as opposed to a burden and a task.
I know in this busy, busy world, a lot of times it's easy to lose track of what you're actually putting first. What is the danger of not being thoughtful and intentional about how you're prioritizing your marriage, for example?
It's a great question. The simple answer is you're ultimately going to lead to the end of your relationship. Unfortunately, the ending of the relationship is generally a long and toxic decline before the divorce is actually finalized. People tolerate each other, and through that tolerance, they create an environment where children are taught that a new normal, and that normal is not a healthy one that promotes a healthy relationship or emulates a healthy relationship, which also ultimately leads to poor relationships for the children because they don't know any different.
I know you help people quite a bit, Sarah, in terms of making their relationships more healthy, working to avoid the divorce. When you work with your clients, what do you recommend that they do to make sure they're prioritizing their marriage?
First of all, thanks for acknowledging that, because when people hear what I do, they assume that I'm pro divorce, and I'm not. I'm pro people making really good decisions for themselves and their kids. And so if we can save a marriage, we are 100% on board with that in office and thrilled when that happens. And some people come in to work with me and they do stay married. So thank you for that. I am really big on having our priorities lined out. Like, what are your priorities? A lot of times you'll ask a client that question and they don't know. Well, and we have to really, because when you have your priorities in place, all of your decisions flow from that and you can make better, clearer decisions. For me personally, my relationship with God comes first. That's the very first thing. Second is taking care of myself. I learned as a young mom of 3 kids that if I didn't really do self-care mentally, physically, spiritually, really take care of myself, I was no good to anybody. And then that leads into my relationship comes next. My relationship with my partner comes next. My kids come after that. People are like, oh, so it's horrified. They're going to grow up and they're going to move out. Then what am I left with? So my relationship with my partner comes next. My relationship with my children comes after that. Then after that, I line up, my career, my work, my hobbies, other family, those sorts of things. But it's really important to be very clear and very intentional about those and check in with yourself frequently about, are the decisions I'm making and the actions I'm taking in alignment with what I say is important to me? Because a lot of times you'll find out that they're not. And like you said, with all of the sports and all of that, when my kids were growing up, we didn't do a ton of sports. I had 4 of them. I felt like it was more important. I did not want to be one of those families that was everywhere. We spent time together at home in the pool as a family. And that was a choice that we made. And I think sometimes we get lost in that. We're doing all of the things. And again, is that really what we need to be doing? It goes back to priorities. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you notice that you mentioned that some of your clients are like priorities? I don't even know what they are. Um, do you notice that some of your clients are actually living out priorities that were really someone else's?
I think that does happen. And I think a lot of times when people get really honest, they'll say their priorities are one thing because it's what's culturally expected, maybe, or, either the way they grew up or family of origin or their faith. And then when you really sit down with them, they're like, actually, that's not true. Actually,
Yeah.
that's not true. And it's a huge mindset shift, which we love.
Yeah. Well, and I find that if I look at my calendar and what I've actually been pouring my time into, that's a real insight into what my lived priorities actually are, as opposed to the priorities that I feel are what I want to live into. And so that can be a reality check that I have from time to time.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you want to know somebody's priorities, look at where they're spending their money and their time.
Yeah. So you've worked with a lot of clients over the years. Could you share a story perhaps about a client who was able to shift their priorities so that they came into alignment? And how did that benefit their marriage?
Yes, I have. Fortunately, I get a couple clients a year that come in and really have a desire to reconcile with their spouse. And uh, on an occasion, they actually follow my advice. And the ones that I know that they followed my advice, I know that they remain married, at least in that instance, because the case gets dismissed. And this particular individual came into my office. It was the second time that his wife had filed. And so I asked him, he expressed a desire to remain married. And so I said, tell me about the first separation in the divorce case. And he said she filed. I went to counseling. I did all this, this, and this. He listed all these tasks that he set up for himself and started. And I said, okay, so what happened with that? Well, we reconciled. I'm like, great. So I'm guessing your wife filed for divorce now, and you went back to counseling. You went back to church. You did the same things. Yeah, I did. And I go, you're here to see me because it's not working this time. And he goes, exactly. And I'm like, why would it? He goes, well, I'm changing. And I said, well, that may be your perspective, but I'm going to guess that your wife feels like she was manipulated by you the first time. And so now that you haven't changed, she's actually going for divorce for real this time. Oh my gosh, that's probably true. What can I do? And I said, nothing other than finish what you've started.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? And I go, you need to remain enrolled in counseling, not tell your wife about it. You just need to do it. You need to stop going home and reporting about all the great things you're doing to make her happy and focus on real change, real fundamental change within yourself. She needs to see your heart change for her to give you another chance. And he actually did it. He retired from his job and took physical, affirmative steps to address what he had been told were his shortcomings. And his wife, they went all the way to a final divorce decree that was sent to wife for her signature. She never signed it. She never returned it. The case was actually ultimately dismissed for lack of prosecution. And when that happened, I reached out to him and asked him how things were going. And he says, never better.
Excellent. I love a good success story. And
So do we.
Sometimes there are these moments in life that are like these wake up moments. Mm-hmm. And I would say he answered the call. He did not hit the snooze alarm.
Exactly. I tell people all the time that if you're not having conflict or difficulties in your marriage, then that's a sign of a problem in your marriage, because we're human beings. We have dislikes. We are not going to agree. And rather than looking at the troubles and the difficulties you have in a relationship as a negative, you should really be grateful about it, because they're all opportunities for growth, for each of you to grow and be more like Christ. And through that process, become closer together and have a stronger relationship, a stronger marriage, and provide a better example to your children. And ultimately, that's what I think we all want, is to provide a healthy, honest environment where our kids thrive and recognize what a biblical marriage looks like.
And didn't you say in a meeting the other day, because this is about priorities, that when your kids were small, you guys were going to church and you were going to mass and you were sitting in church and it was stressful and not good. And so you had to have a priority shift around what was more important at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. We had 3 kids or 2 kids at the time, 18 months apart. So we had a 3-year, they were all very close.
Toddlers. And
we were going to Catholic church, and Catholic church doesn't have kid church. So those kids are sitting with us in the pew. And you talk about getting the death stare from the people as our kids are messing with their Cheerios. My wife and I would leave church. We would be besides ourselves. It was a very stressful time. So we just decided to go to a church that had kid care. And man, we were there. We were there holding hands, and it was a date. We loved it. And, so you just have to adjust to the season that you're in. And, to heck with society's norms. Look, what does your family need? What does your marriage need? How can you serve it and make those decisions based on that? Don't live an authentic life. Don't live a life that 10 years later you realize you've just been living what the reflection is of everybody else's expectations.
Yeah, I love the intentionality of that decision that you guys made around, you know what, I'm not going to worry about the denomination of the church or who goes there or any of that kind of stuff. We want to have an experience of connectedness, of that religious experience in the service. And that means the kids need to have kid church and the adults need to have adult church, and let's make that happen.
Exactly. That's
like
just
that.
an example of the decisions my wife and I have made to be intentional about our relationship and make it a priority.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And speaking of intentionality, it's time for our mindful moment, Sarah. What do you have for us today?
This is my favorite one to give people because I love all of their ideas. But, I call it, and people have heard of this. And what happens is everybody says, oh, I'm going to do this, and they don't do it. And so
Right.
just do it. But A to Z date nights. So some people choose restaurants. So there's, every 2 weeks, there's 26 letters on the alphabet. And so every 2 weeks you can do a date night. Have it be something that starts with an A, or a restaurant that starts with an A, or an activity, go to art lessons, go to the beach, go camping. I don't know, but just, put those on the calendar them out, be creative and fun with it. If you're on a tight budget, you can get more creative, but it's really a fun thing to do. And I love when my clients do this because I love hearing the things they came up with and the ideas they come back with. And it's a really fun thing for couples to do, especially when they take turns planning the activity.
Yeah, exactly. I had some friends that they did a fishbowl draw. They put in, their 26 things that they wanted to do, and then they would take turns drawing out the slip for whatever the date night was. So yeah, it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to take a ton of time. You fill the bowl once and, you're good to go for the rest of the year.
Newsflash, if you don't have time to write out 26 things on a piece of paper and stick it in a fishbowl, you've got bigger problems.
Amen, sir. Preach.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, what is your priority? What do you mean you don't have time to go out on a date? It's an excuse that's I sometimes get really kind of, I don't know what the proper...
Passionate?
I'm very passionate about what I do, but sometimes people come in to me and I'm like, really? That's what you're upset about? They have no perspective. It's like they've been fed with this golden spoon all their life, and now that they're not being, it's a tarnished spoon, they're offended by it and they want out. And I'm like, really? I mean, you've made 3 beautiful babies with this person. What is their perspective? Why? Do you really think it's going to be that much better? Have you considered these things and the things that we've talked about in this and previous podcasts? Marriage is hard. Expect that. But you get out of it what you put into it. And if you serve your marriage well, you're going to have a very fulfilling experience. An experience that you can't have in any other venue.
I love
So
that.
fight the fight. Fight for your marriage.
Fight the fight. Exactly. Earn your way out. And maybe you won't end up leaving, right?
Correct.
That's
really
the
the
beautiful
process.
thing.
Really it is. Earn your way out and you're going to find yourself staying.
I love that. And thank you to everyone who joined us here today. And remember, for more insights and exclusive resources tailored to navigating life's challenges, be sure to check out the Nelson Law Group app. It's specifically designed to support you through the divorce process with expert advice and community resources. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more topics around saving your marriage and earning your way out. And until next time, live aligned.
Live aligned.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments. For more exclusive content, including helpful guides like our Divorce Care Guide, download our app today and get the support you need right at your fingertips.